Thank you. You're all very welcome here to this talk on philosophy. My name is Peter Simons. I'm the Professor of Moral Philosophy here at Trinity. I'm the 15th person in that office since it was inaugurated in 1837. And I'm going to walk you a little through philosophy at Trinity College Dublin. First of all, I'll briefly address the question, why Trinity? Secondly, a little bit about what philosophy is, because philosophy is not a subject taught in schools in Ireland and taught only to some extent in the UK. Much more taught on the continent in schools, so it may be a little unfamiliar to people what philosophy is. I'll then talk about how you do philosophy at Trinity if you want to do it, the various ways you can do it and what you can expect to confront you during your 4 years. What you can do with a philosophy degree, more than you might think, and then finally we'll have questions at the end. So why Trinity? Well, you've probably heard this from lots of other people, but it bears repetition. Trinity is Ireland's oldest university, dates back 419 years. It is Ireland's premier research university, that is, its research output, the output of its academics, as measured by the estimation of peers in their fields around the world, makes it the best university in Ireland for research, the products of research. Now, as an undergraduate, you won't be doing research. You will not necessarily be confronted directly with the products of research, but it has the following beneficial effects. Firstly, you are taught by people who are leading experts in their field. Secondly, their work filters down to the teaching that they give you. Thirdly, because of this position and because of its age, Trinity it has a wide international recognition as a brand. So if you have a degree from Trinity College, this will be instantly recognized by people across the world as being a good thing. So that's a good reason to be at Trinity. There are other reasons to be here, some of which you will already have made acquaintance with. It's a very beautiful campus with lots of nice buildings in it, some extremely ugly buildings at the other end of the campus, and maybe the one that we're sitting in is not regarded by everyone as the most beautiful. But it is a campus, that is to say, it's a closed, connected environment, and it, unlike many campuses in many parts of the world, it is in the middle of a capital city, and it's very, very accessible to that capital city. You only need to go a few steps from here, and you can be in Bewley's or Marks and Spencer's or in any one of several hundred pubs. Furthermore, there is a clear distinction between Trinity and the outside by contrast with lots of universities which are old, like Bologna or Oxford or Cambridge. So it's very clear when you're in Trinity, when you're outside. When you're in, you've got the peace and quiet, the green fields, the cricket field, the rugby field, the various squares, and you are to some extent insulated from the noise and bustle of the traffic outside. But if you want the noise and bustle, you just need to step outside. So it has those advantages. Finally, it has one of the best libraries in northwestern Europe because of its unique status as a copyright library. A copyright library is a British institution whereby major libraries in the UK and also Trinity in Ireland are entitled to a free copy of any book published in the UK or Ireland. Trinity does not actually get every single book that comes out into Waterstones, but nevertheless it has the option to do that, and as a result of that has a very fine library collection of over 3 million volumes. It also has probably the nicest library room in the world, which is the long room. If you haven't already been there, it's well worth a visit. What is philosophy? Well, philosophy might seem, it's a very old subject, it's after mathematics the oldest subject there is, so it might seem as though it's irrelevant to today's world. Nothing could be further from the truth. There is a picture of a famous 20th century philosopher, Bertrand Russell, complete with his then obligatory accessory, the philosopher's pipe. And Russell said somewhere, he said lots of very, very profound things, he said some silly things, but this is one of the more profound ones. To teach how to live without certainty and yet without being paralyzed by hesitation is perhaps the chief thing that philosophy in our age can do for those who study it. So if you are a philosopher, you are used to living with uncertainty, and I don't mean just whether you will survive to the end of the day, but you're used to coping with lacks of certainty. And in our age, the lack of certainty is one of the prime characteristics surrounding us. So uncertainty about the future, uncertainty about what's right, uncertainty about what will happen, and all these things surround us. And one of the things that you learn as a philosopher is how to cope with that, and indeed to make it one of your strengths. Ireland has a number of notable philosophers. The gentleman at the top, some of the older generation may recognize that picture. It belongs to a form of now dilapidated and outdated currency that many people wish we still had. This is the punt, and that's the 5-punt note that was in circulation between 1973 and 1996, I think something like that, 97. And it depicts Johannes Scotus Eriugena, regarded by many as the first medieval philosopher. He came from Ireland. His name means John the Gael, born in Ireland. And he was mainly active in Paris, possibly also later in Oxford. He knew Greek, which was very unusual, and he's called a Neoplatonist. He is a philosopher whose views were derived from those of Plato. And he, as I say, he's regarded as the first of the medieval as distinct from ancient philosophers. That picture is almost certainly completely unlike what he looked like, because no one knows what he looked like. There are no pictures of him. There are, however, pictures of the two lower gentlemen, George Berkeley, Bishop of Cloyne, adherent or inventor of a doctrine called immaterialism, according to which there are no such things as material objects. Despite this mild form of insanity, a very pleasant person and a very influential and important philosopher, lived between 1685 and 17, I've forgotten. Then Edmund Burke, the political philosopher, also like Berkeley, a fellow of this college, who again was more influential abroad. Down here was a member of the House of Commons for the Whig Party for many, many years. His most famous book, Reflections on the Revolution in France, widely regarded as a precursor of modern-day conservatism. Whether you think that's a good thing or not is your problem. Now, what is philosophy about? Well, first of all, philosophy, the word means the love of wisdom. It's a Greek word. Philosophy as we know it dates from about the 6th century BC, originated in Western Asia Minor on the coast of present-day Turkey, in the Greek-speaking part of the world, and spread from there through the Mediterranean, eventually to the whole world. It took a while. It has an unbroken history in the West. There are other than Western philosophies. There is Chinese philosophy and Indian philosophy, but they were interrupted by other events. Its unbroken history is divided into 4 periods: ancient, medieval, modern, and contemporary. The aim of philosophy is to integrate knowledge and unify it from all the various domains into one system. It doesn't do this just by stitching them together, but by researching and critically examining their concepts and their theories, how they relate to one another, whether in what way they form a unified whole. Philosophy is typically regarded as one of the arts, and in the medieval faculties of philosophy, faculties of arts, philosophy was the study everyone first did. The Faculty of Arts, first of all, they did philosophy, then they went on to something regarded as more important, such as mathematics, law, or theology. But in fact, philosophy is neither a science in the sense of natural science, nor is it an art in the sense of history or English. It's its own kind. It's really just something different. The main point about philosophy is that it seeks to employ rational argumentation and justification rather than, as in some other domains, relying on authority, for example, in theology, or on experiment, as in the natural sciences, or indeed on unquestioned intuition, or at least intuition such as you find in modern psychological linguistics. The main point about philosophy is, when you're a philosopher, you don't take anything for granted. That's one of the points of the motto of Russell. Philosophy has a number of parts in order of no particular order, except the ones I like are near the top. Metaphysics, the theory of being, the theory of knowledge or epistemology, philosophy of mind, language, science, religion, logic, the art and science of correct or rational reasoning, ethics or moral philosophy, political philosophy, aesthetics, and history of philosophy. And in the undergraduate course, you do quite a lot of history of philosophy because we all learn how to not make the mistakes that people made in the past and how not to reinvent old wheels. How do you study philosophy at TCD? Well, first of all, however you study it, you do it over 4 years. Not all universities extend their undergraduate degree programs over 4 years. We do. There are essentially 3 ways in which you could study philosophy at Trinity. As a single honours subject, doing nothing but philosophy. In that way, it is the most specialised philosophy undergraduate degree that I know anywhere in the universe. You do nothing but philosophy for 4 years. Everywhere else I know does either 3 years or something else in addition. But in Trinity, you just do philosophy. That's called the Single Honours Philosophy Programme, sometimes called by its antiquated title, Mental and Moral Science. You can do philosophy in conjunction with a number of subjects, either equally or major minor. That's called two-subject moderation. In other places, it's called joint honours. And I'll show you a table of the different subjects you can combine with philosophy later on. That's a very popular option. If you're not quite sure about philosophy because you've not done enough before and you don't want to put all your eggs in the philosophical basket, then you can combine it with French or psychology or Irish or Greek or religion or quite a few other things. Finally, you can study philosophy as part of a 4-subject degree course, which is unique to Trinity and relatively new. It's called PPES, Philosophy, Politics, Economics and Sociology. It's been running this is its 4th year, so our first final year cohort are going through now. Some of you may have seen the presentation by my colleague, Dr. Paul O'Grady, on this earlier today. It's based on, or the idea is inspired by the 3-subject degree PPE, Philosophy, Politics and Economics at Oxford, which raised a whole generation of administrators of empire and also my son. And we added in sociology because we didn't want our friends in the School of Social Sciences and Philosophy who do sociology to feel left out. And PPES is a very good way to combine philosophy with other subjects of outstanding contemporary relevance. Every day you hear something about politics and economics and sometimes about sociology on the radio and television. Philosophy knits those together and gives you the critical thinking tools you need in order to understand them, link them and move forward. If you are doing philosophy, however much you do, whether as one of 4 subjects, as one of 2 subjects, or as a single honours subject, you do it over the 4 years. In the first year, you get introduction to various topics and problems of philosophy and some history of philosophy from ancient to modern. In the second year, you also study some primary texts at first hand, all in English or in English translation. In the third year, you get a little more choice on the topics in history. In the final year, you don't get lecture courses, you get seminars, which you're required to participate in, give talks in, participate in discussion with. And this is something, again, which is relatively rare in philosophy undergraduate courses. The subject matters of the seminars are closely related to the members of staff research interests. You also, if you're doing single honours philosophy, do an undergraduate dissertation. Assessment is always by a combination of essays and examinations, and again in single honours you also have the dissertation. Finally, you are able to, if you're good enough and if we like you enough, you could go on to study for a doctoral degree, a PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, in Dublin at Trinity. If you do so, you take part in what's now called the Trinity Philosophy Graduate Programme, which is a joint programme with UCD. In research, you need lots and lots of people. Neither ourselves nor UCD are big enough to sustain a large cohort of graduates. So we've combined our resources and we give joint courses, although you still get a degree from just one of those 2 institutions. Those are the various subjects that you can combine with philosophy in TSM. If you're interested in any of those, obviously you will want to go and look not only at the philosophy component, but also at the other component. I'll show you briefly later, but there is also literature you can pick up going around campus, how many points you need to do those various combinations. So the minimum entry points for 2011 were single honours philosophy 430. In A-levels, that's an A-star BBC or better. If you do philosophy and something else, those are the points that you needed to get in 2011. By the way, getting those points was not always a guarantee that you would get in, because some of the subjects have relatively strict quotas. For those who are interested in PPES, the point requirement was 525. There is no guarantee those points will stay exactly the same this coming year. They may go up or down. It depends on supply and demand. These are the mugshots of my colleagues. We are a relatively small department. There are 8 of us permanent staff, 7 academics and 1 administrator. We are a cosmopolitan lot, 2 Americans, 1 Greek, 1 Finn, 1 German, 1 Sassenach, that's me, and 1 Irishman, and that's Paul O'Grady, and 1 administrator who is also Irish, that's Una Campbell. She's actually the most important person in the department. So if you run into disreputable looking characters on campus, that may be one of them. That is our webpage. That's how to find out more about us. If you're interested, go and surf. Just explore the links and see what's going on. There's a nice little introductory video that you can play with lots of people with sunshine in their faces and beautiful backgrounds saying how lovely it is to study philosophy at Trinity. That was not filmed during the rainy season. What can you do with philosophy? Well, it's actually easier to say what you can't do with philosophy, and the answer is anything that requires you to do detailed technical training. For example, in medicine, or engineering, or science. But anything else, philosophy is a way in the following sense. It doesn't teach you how to be a lawyer, or how to be a journalist, or how to be a politician, but it provides you with eminently transferable skills which enable you to be good at whatever you choose to be good at. So those are some of the things that philosophers do go into, have gone into, and will continue to go into. Independent critical thinking is welcomed by all employers, with 1 or 2 possible ecclesiastical exceptions. And philosophy graduates are both welcomed by employers, they are eminently employable, and they do get jobs. So just because it sounds like it's a woolly, head in the clouds, ivory tower sort of thing to do, if you think that, you're actually wrong, because the critical thinking skills you imbibe by listening to talks about and thinking about Plato and Descartes and Hume and Aristotle and Quine and Wittgenstein will stand you in good stead throughout life. And if everything else fails, you could always become a philosopher like me, but I wouldn't advise it. Philosophy, I said, is something for our time, but it's also something timeless. Philosophia perennis is the problems that will always be with us. Things like the mind-body problem, the free will problem, the whether God exists problem, and so on. And there is one of the older English language philosophers, Thomas Hobbes, 1588 to 1679, making an absolutely beautiful statement about what philosophy is and should be about. If I'd written that, I would be extremely happy. So who can be a philosopher? Well, first of all, it doesn't need to be a guy. This is the philosopher and mathematician Hypatia of Alexandria, born 350, died 415 AD, savagely torn apart by a Christian mob in Alexandria. Not a nice way to end. One of the great mathematicians of antiquity and also a very eminent Neoplatonist philosopher. You don't need to be ancient to be a female person studying philosophy. That's a typical female Trinity undergraduate philosopher thinking hard about a problem. You can also be a dead white European male or dead Greek dude, that's Aristotle. A modern Trinity male undergraduate looks a little more like that. But notice the facial hair, which seems to be a permanent attribute of many philosophers. But you don't even need to be a mammal. That's Alex the Parrot, 1979 to 2007. The brightest bird of all history, learning how to count using Arabic numerals. He could do it up to 6. Unfortunately, he didn't live very long. He only lived 31 years, unlike the usual lifespan of parrots, which is 60 years. Otherwise, he would have probably said, in a Chicago accent, cogito ergo sum. On the other hand, there is always Big Brother, and it's not God, it's Steve Jobs. Notice the thoughtful pose and the facial hair. So anyone can be a philosopher. You don't need to be male. You don't even need to be human. If you are further interested in philosophy and or PPES, the information stands manned by extremely beautiful and intelligent people part of the time are in the examination hall in the front square, and you're welcome to go around there and talk to the students who will tell you exactly what it's like to be a philosophy undergraduate at Trinity. Finally, any questions? We are spot on time. My Prussian timekeeping has worked. All right, thank you very much for coming.